Details, Please, with your hosts Emmanuel and Angela Williams, where we dive deeper into conversations with visionary entrepreneurs to discover what it takes to turn passion into purpose. Listen to real-world stories from self-starters and trailblazers, and discover strategies and innovations shaping a greener future. Whether you are a seasoned business person or just starting out, let this be your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable tips for success. Join us now as we create a brighter, greener future together.
Hello and welcome to More Details, Please, our latest episode. We're still talking about time, so I'm excited today to be sharing with Emmanuel that time flies when you're having fun. So we definitely want to make sure we add some joy in that piece. So with that, I'm Angela Williams.
And Emmanuel Williams.
And today, let's talk about joy. So today's episode is all about something exciting. It's all about something that is positive. That's it. That's all we're going to talk about, something that's positive. So anything that happened negative, leave it out. Today is about positivity.
The reason why we went into our toolkit, our toolbox, our nuggets and wisdom of toolbox, and came out with the word joy. Joy is all about positivity, and joy is all about connecting deeper. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how to use joy. Because a lot of people think that joy, well, I don't know what a lot of people think, but I very seldom hear a conversation on joy and being able to use it as a practical tool to help you be better. So as an entrepreneur, that's what we're going to dig deep in, because we say more detail, please. We like to go deeper. So that's what we're going to do. We reached into our toolbox this morning, and Angela and I came up with the word joy that we're going to talk about today.
Well, this podcast is all about entrepreneurs turning their passion into their purpose. I think joy is your purpose. It is your primary purpose, joy. Secondarily, whatever else you're doing, if that is to build a business, if that is to handle your single client. I forgot to say that when you have a job, the only difference between an entrepreneur that has multiple clients is you have one client, and that is the client that you're serving every day. But the bottom line is that's still your client. You have a job to do with that client, just like I have a job to do with multiple clients. But joy, it's kind of like water. It's pretty precious. And from that standpoint, we're going to use joy to keep us excited today and hopefully keep everyone else excited on their entrepreneur journey.
Yes, so let's talk about joy and entrepreneur. When I talk about joy, joy is a modality. It is an underlying frequency that comes through you into what you do. It is a state of consciousness. And when I talk about entrepreneurship, when you have joy, when you find something that you enjoy, that's why it's really important to find something that you enjoy as an entrepreneur. So when you have the joy of doing, and then you have a goal that you're trying to reach, when you put joy and the goal that you're trying to reach, what comes up is enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is joy added with a goal trying to get to a certain place. So that is really important when we talk about entrepreneurship, because enthusiasm is very, very important in terms of how you are motivated, how long you are motivated, how hard you try, all of the things that go into trying to reach your goal. So when you have joy, you have enthusiasm. And then the question is, when we start digging deep, what's under joy? What's underneath joy? You know, because joy is a modality, is a frequency, is an energy, right? Just like you got high energy, then you got low energy. What's under joy? Well, before I tell you what's under joy, I want to talk about happiness. And that's where a lot of people kind of confused. I'm trying to figure out what is the difference between joy and happiness. Joy and happiness. Because what we're doing is we're breaking joy down so that you can understand it from a holistic perspective And then once you're able to understand joy from a holistic perspective, then you can take it out of your toolkit and use it for practical purposes to empower you. So now the difference is joy and happiness. Happiness is the opposite of sadness. Happy, sad, that's a polar opposite. And happy and sad is something that you achieve externally. It is one of your ego attachments. If I get this car, I'm going to be happy. If I don't get this car, I'm going to be sad. That is external. If I get this job, I'm going to be happy. If I don't get this job, I'm going to be sad. That is external. Well, joy is internal. Joy comes from within and comes out. So happy and sad is if my ego attachments get what it wants, then I'm going to be happy. But guess what? If your ego attachments don't get what it wants, it's not going to be happy. And if your ego attachments do get what it wants, it's still not going to be happy. So the joy, the happy and sadness is a polar opposite where you're constantly trying to find some type of satisfaction. And you will never find that kind of satisfaction until you understand who you are and how your ego works. But when you talk about joy, you talk about a modality that comes from within and flows out. So let's talk about what is under joy. Under joy is gratitude. Gratitude. See, once you're rooted in gratitude, then you can have an appreciation for things and be grateful for things that a lot of times you just don't really think about. And so what's under joy is gratitude, and what's under gratitude is the present moment. It is the space in which all creativity, all joy, all peace flows from. So the joy of life is really the joy of being. And once you understand that you are a part of a consciousness that is constantly evolving, and we're all a part of this consciousness of love, then we figure out why are we here, and what is our purpose? And when you align yourself with purpose, joy becomes a byproduct of how you feel as a result of being gratitude. It's a byproduct of how you feel as being in a present moment. It's a byproduct of how you feel in terms of that caused you to be enthusiastic and being coming from a joyful place. And in doing that, you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And in doing that, you are connected to the whole. And when you are connected to the whole, you are one with all. And so that's the reason why a lot of people find themselves in a place of constantly giving. Just like the sun is constantly shining because it's never without. You as an individual, you'll constantly find yourself doing something that's serving other people, that's serving the bigger you. And it doesn't matter if you play the piano. It doesn't matter if you're a carpenter. It doesn't matter. So when you talk about joy, joy comes from that place within. Happiness is determined on if I get it from my ego attachments, then I'm happy. But if I don't get it, I'm sad. And then on top of that, the joy of life is a part of why we are here. So in discovering these dynamics, these tools of joy and these tools of where it comes from and how to use it is a very powerful practice that hopefully our listening audience will get some nuggets of wisdom in terms of what joy is and how it's being used. One more thing when it comes to joy. When you talk about your ego attachments, happiness and sadness, if I get it, then I'm happy. If I don't get it, I'm sad because those are my ego attachments. And joy is a byproduct of being in alignment with your purpose, being that one with God. One of the things that you will realize is that the more you detach your ego attachments, a byproduct of that is also joy. For an example, you can have an addiction. See, addiction is the ego attachment where you out of control. You have a drinking problem, or you have a smoking problem, or you have some kind of addiction that you can't stop. And as you bring the joy and the present into those stories you're telling yourself, and you transmute that, and you start to see how you start to become in control of those stories, and you start to overcome those addictions, and you start to feel better. That's the byproduct. Joy is the byproduct of that. So in your addiction and your attachments to your ego attachments, whatever they may be, in getting over them, joy is a byproduct. So joy is the indicator. And I just want people to understand the difference between joy and your ego attachments of being happy or not being happy.
Great. So let's talk about finding your joy, because that's where you want to start.
Your joy. Where do I find my joy? How do I find my joy? I find my joy, and this is important. This is very important. You have to be rooted in gratitude. You have to be grateful for what you already have. You can't follow the stories of what you don't have. You can't be trapped in the stories of what's negative. You have to always look to see how you are grateful in whatever your situation may be. What that is doing is that is aligning you with the present moment, which means that your stories that you telling yourself, past, we talk about time. In gratitude, you stepping outside of time to be present. But if you are trapped in time, past, future thought processes, memories, pains of the past, and memories of the and fears of the future, then it's hard for you to be rooted in gratitude. So the more you calm those, the more you bring something into a dimension of who you are into what you do in terms of gratitude, that kind of slows everything down and grounds you in your alignment with the greater part of you that you have to awaken to. So that's the first thing.
Yeah. So what I keep thinking about is, why do we even talk about
this topic called joy? And the biggest thing is, without joy, nothing really is possible. Achieving a specific goal is not possible. It's funny, it just made me think about our executive meeting. And one of the comments that was made is, you need to build fun into it. So deciding that having fun is a part of the journey is the most important thing, because we can get busy doing stuff, and then when stuff don't quite work out like we expected it to, then we are upset. And oftentimes that's because we're measuring too soon. But if we find joy along the journey and everything that we do, then it's fine. Now, I am not going to say I enjoy having a flat tire. When I got into the truck today and realized that the tire was flat, all I could think is, oh my God, I'm so glad I figured it out before I got on the highway. That was the joy. That was the joy of saying this flat tire did not stop me. It did not slow me down. So the joy is I figured it out beforehand. So really building a little bit of fun into it before you react that something didn't go off or start exactly at the exact time that you expected. It's all right, let me find the joy in this. And the joy in it is what I avoided, what could have happened. But then also it's in the fact of, it is nice outside. I don't think I would have recognized how nice it was had it not been for the fact that, boy, if I had to deal with this flat tire, which I didn't, by the way, but if I had to deal with this flat tire, at least it's nice outside. It's not raining. Sun is shining, it's 60 degrees. I don't have any sleeves on. It feels great. That was the joy in it all. So you have to find your joy first.
And in finding your joy, you have to have a realization. And that realization is one of the most important things that you can be responsible for, is your state of consciousness. How are you feeling? I mean, if you are in a job and you hate it, or you're in a situation, you have to take responsibility for that, right? And how do you determine your state of consciousness? The degree of presence. How present are you to be aware of how you're feeling? So with that being said, then the next thing is finding joy is sometimes you have to move yourself out of situations. Sometimes you have to get yourself out of, situations, relationships, workplaces, because that is hindering your joy. The joy is not coming from the outside in. The joy is coming from the inside out. So as you become more aware of your state of consciousness and what is stagnating your growth or your joy, then you have to start making moves. And I tell you this, you can move yourself from a negative situation that you didn't want to happen. But at the same time, when there's a sense of peace, there's a sense of joy. So for an example, I give you an example, and this is personal. My father, he passed away, and they found him in the trunk of a vehicle. And all my life, we had a up and down relationship. But at the end of, as I grew up, we developed a really great, strong relationship. And I felt as a son that I have done everything that I possibly could to be the best that I can be in dealing with that relationship with my father. And prior to him, they finding him in the trunk of a car. That weekend, he told me, he said, "Hey, E, I want you to come over. We're going to do some barbecuing." We was laughing. He was like, "Come get you some meat. We're going to have some music on. We're going to play some cards." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll be by." I didn't get by there. But the point is this, as tragic as that situation was, and as much tears and sorrow that it created, there was a sense of peace. And I call that the peace that passes all understanding. So in spite of the situation that was so negative and so tragic, because I felt like I did the best that I can do and all that I can do as a son, there was a sense of peace. And underneath that peace, it was a sense of joy. Even though that there were tears, but there were tears of joy. But at the same time, there were people, and it helped me. So the point that I'm trying to make is that where you find your joy is where you work towards removing obstacles and barriers and forgiving people and loving people and settling those differences and dealing with those family crises. You know, you can't change everybody, but at least you can do the best that you can do. And as you start to removing those stories, watching those stories, diluting those stories in your head, and making a physical effort to bring some closure to relationships that is dear to you, it doesn't matter how it ended up, as long as you did the best part that you can do, you will find a sense of peace, even in the midst of sadness. But then from that peace, a byproduct of that peace, you'll get a sense of joy. And that's how you find your joy.
With joy, we all strive for it, but it's not always there. So this is not about being Pollyanna, like everything always has to be perfect, because that is not the case. I am generally a positive person, but definitely I am not one that would say I am positive all the time. I am not a Pollyanna by any means, but there are these things that steal your joy. So beware of things that steal your joy. We would call these the joy thieves. So examples, what is a joy thief? What is something that'll steal your joy? Well, in that case where I had a flat tire, that could have stole my joy if I focused on the negative of it. It could be a toxic relationship or a toxic individual or a toxic client. Any of those things are negative and they can steal your joy. Your own muck can steal your joy. When you decide that your thoughts and the thoughts that are repetitive are more important than staying in this moment, that's okay too. So maybe you have to talk yourself off the ledge sometimes. My statement personally is this too shall pass. I say that a lot. Something's happening, not making me feel good. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And another one for me is things are always working out for me. And I'll say that over and over again until I can get into a state of joy. But sometimes I say I am having fun or enjoy, but my face, my words, my thoughts don't match it. That's when I really have to come back to this too shall pass, so I can make sure I can bring everything in alignment and have that joy. So let's talk a little bit about joy thieves.
Well, one of my statements is, if there's no enemy within, the enemy without can do you no harm. And the only way that there's going to be an enemy within, if you're unconscious. If you're not aware of the story that you're telling yourself, and you trapped in time, you trapped in your mind, you're focusing on the pain of the past and the fear of the future, you're vulnerable. Any little thing that happens that triggers any little thing, you're gonna be unconscious. I'll give you an example. You take Will Smith. At the height of his career, at the top of the world in terms of movies, he had a bunch of clutter. He was clouded with a bunch of clutter, and he wasn't present in that moment. To the point where somebody said something to him, because I'm sure he had all these thoughts going on about how he felt about his wife and what other people were saying or whatever, but that was his trigger when Chris Rock. And he totally lost unconsciousness. And he did something that was unconscionable. Walked up on the stage, slapped him, turned back around, sat down, and cussed him out. Well, The reason why that happened was because he was unaware. There was an enemy within, which was his patient with the fear of the pain of the past and the fear of the future, and he lost it. He became a walking robot zombie, and he was out of control. And you have so many people, good people, that have done so many horrible things because they went unconscious, because they were cluttered on the inside. So my whole thing is that if there is no enemy within, the enemy without can do you no harm, which means that nobody can take your joy, because joy comes from within. It's not outside, something that comes in from the outside.
Yeah, the interesting thing is joy is definitely in the details. One thing that I think about often is when we set our strategy a few years back. So this was 2020, 2021, during the height of COVID. One of the things that we said is, from a strategic standpoint, we want to create an organization that first focused on fun, autonomy also, mastery also, but fun. Fun was important to build that into everything that we did in our organization. So we built our BEAM program, which is the program that we use that's all about achievement and mastery. It's our benchmark so that we can say, this is what achievement looks like. We identified it early on. And because of that, that's how we recognize our employees when they do a great job. But it's not limited to employees. It's for everybody. It's for everybody in the organization. If you want to know how to get ahead, you want to constantly be a BEAM winner. But the details is what's important. There's a psychologist, Barbara Fredrickson, that says micro moments of joy is what you measure. Because sometimes we can have a very, very lofty goal. And because that goal is so big, we lose sight of it because it becomes overwhelming. It's just too much. But we can then start to enjoy the small incremental achievements that happen. That is fun along the way. So for me, in this case, a road trip with Emmanuel is fun. Fun along the way. Now, I don't know that I've always loved road trips. And I don't know that I've always loved road trips with Emmanuel. But road trips in general, we have this little thing that we do. It's like our secret handshake when it's time for a road trip. And he enjoys the kind of snacks that he enjoys on the road trip. I enjoy the kind of snacks that I enjoy. And we decided that we don't have to make the whole road trip in a day. So if we want to gear off, or if we want to go visit somebody, or if we want to stop and spend a night somewhere that we've never spent before, if we want to go to a concert or a theater or a game, we'll do that. And that makes the road trip even more enjoyable. But I can tell you, we had planned on taking a road trip from Detroit, Michigan to Arizona. We planned it out, all the things that we were going to do. And it sounded so exciting. The planning was so much fun. But by the time I got done with the planning, I knew for sure I did not want that road trip at all. So instead we flew. But the exciting part about it was I enjoyed the planning. That's what gives me joy. Planning it out, even if I do it or not. You have to find what gives you joy. That's what gives me joy. And it was exciting.
Joy is doing the thing that I feel connected. And it's funny because the more I meditate and the more I become aware of what I'm feeling and my reactions to what I'm feeling, the more I realize there are certain things that I enjoy doing that I didn't even realize. So for an example, I enjoy cleaning. I enjoy getting up, cleaning my bed, cleaning up the room, just kind of doing some things, because I start doing that when I wake up in the morning, because that's kind of a way that I kind of reset myself. Where before I retired, I didn't have the luxury of even having the space to even realize that, because I'm up at a certain time, I got to be out the house at a certain time, and I got to be on the job at a certain time. And so I miss that because of my ritual, my routine. But when I retired, I started to realize, wait a minute, I'm creating space to do some of the things that I love doing. I love cutting grass. It's a workout. We got a lot of grass to cut. I love how my yard looks. And I just love doing things, finding things, or realizing things that I love doing. Now, the reason why that's so important is because of this. We're all a part of a universal consciousness. We're all connected. The very essence that makes your heart beat is the very essence that makes my heart beat. It's the very essence that makes the sun shine. It's the very essence that makes the grass grow. We all are part of this divine consciousness rooted in love, right? And so our purpose here is to realize that connection and then find something that we do that serve other people but create joy frequency. So we are a transmitter of energy and we're a receiver of energy. So our thoughts is transmitting energy going out into the universe because you get out of life what you are, not what you want. And then the emotion that we feel creates a magnetic field that starts to attract and bring those things that we desire into our lives. And giving off that positive energy is the same as a flower. You watching a beautiful flower. And it makes you feel connected to that flower. Or you bite into like we did yesterday, a delicious sweet watermelon. That watermelon purpose is to make you feel good. That flower purpose is to make you feel joy. The sunshine is to make you feel joy. And to feel joy and to be in alignment with that, to feel joy is why you're here. We wasn't here to struggle. We're here to enjoy life and to have fun and to be around good people and to constantly recreate the life that we desire and serve other people. So that's the reason why when you talk about joy, it's so because it is a huge part of a universal consciousness. And that's the reason why you got so many people walking around here with negative energy, negative attitude, and it impacts the world. So I'm just trying to get our listening audience to understand that using the modality of joy and being able to understand what it is, where it is, how to use it, and understanding it is a byproduct that you're headed in the right direction. When you feel that joy, you're headed in the right direction, and you whatever it is direction that you need to go into, you need to doing it because to let you know that you're moving in the right direction. So put that in your toolbox. And
as an entrepreneur, it's like, I got to start this business. I need to get the business established. I need to decide if I'm going to be an LLC or S Corp or a corporation. I need to decide where I'm going to bank. I need to decide, all right, do I get an EIN for this business? Is it the same as a previous business that I had? Do I need to close out that business before I start this new business? Is it a balance sheet, an income statement, a cash flow statement? How do I analyze all of this? So business is serious. Why are you talking about joy? What does joy have to do with that? Joy is a serious business strategy. So how you build in joy into your entrepreneurial venture could be the difference between achieving a little bit or achieving a lot. Now, every day is not going to be blossoming flowers. Every day is not going to be that way. There's a time to be serious and to analyze the financial statements. And then there is a time to have fun. There's a time to create some joy. There is a time to, as they say, smell the roses. The exciting part about it is I don't think that you can accomplish anything great without joy and fun. I don't think you can. I mean, when I see people that are usually very uptight, that are very judgmental and opinionated, people who are frowning all the time, I can't imagine that they're creating anything great in that moment. It immediately made me think about being in sales. When you are trying to sell somebody something and you are stressed because you got to do it. So they feel that. They feel that energy from you. And more than likely, it's going to turn them off. They are not interested. They want no part of you. So people really decide who they're going to buy from based on who they like. And that's how you make them feel. And if you feel good, that same energy is going to come off. It's going to give a little bit of joy to someone else. So I would say at the end of the day, joy is a business strategy and it's a part of what you should build into any journey that you're involved in. And that includes even if you're going on it to work.
I love what you just said, and I totally get it. Joy, you're not going to always feel joy. Understand this. So when I talked about finding something you love that brings you joy, and then utilize it to serve a greater good, helping other people, That is adding an added dimension to it, which is a purpose, which is enthusiasm, a goal, joy with a goal. That's enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is not always enthusiastic. You have your moments of enthusiasm and then it slows down. You have your moments of enthusiasm and then it slows down. It's not something that is always going to be constantly going. You can be hooray, hurrah, hooray, hurrah, but that's enthusiastic, which is great, which is joy with the added dimension, but even with joy, joy is not always going to be at a peak. It's going to come and it's going to go. So you got enthusiasm. Underneath enthusiasm, you got joy. So let's go underneath joy. Underneath joy is gratitude, right? So you can always be grateful. You can always find something good to be grateful for. And as a result of you always finding something to be grateful for, the byproduct of that is feeling a sense of joy. Joy comes and joy goes. You're going to go through your growth process. And this is when you have arrived. I'm going to tell you when you have arrived. When the worst thing that could have ever happened, that you dread the most, that happened. And you're able to come to a realization that if it had not been for that incident that happened, I don't care how bad it is, that was the best thing that could have ever happened. And that goes to what we call the cross, the crucifixion, and the resurrection. If Christ had not carried the cross, he would have not been able to wear the crown because he was an example. And all of us have a cross to bear because we all are here to grow. And when you are able to find joy in the cross that you are bearing and come to a realization that this is what I'm supposed to be, where I'm supposed to be at this moment, because I am that caterpillar, but my destiny is to become a great, beautiful bud. And this is what I have to go through to get there. You will always walk around with a sense of joy. You will always have a sense of peace.
Well, joy isn't just about feeling good.
It definitely improves outcomes. Teams perform better when they are happy. When team members are happy, they make happy clients. And you can make better and clearer decisions when there is joy. Customers definitely feel the difference. Again, when I'm trying to sell something to somebody and I come off very desperate and anxious, they feel that and they are not interested. So when we think about some takeaways, we want to build joy into the business strategy. We want to build joy into the culture of the organization. It's easy to do. It's easy to say, but you have to really make it a part of your everyday. Make it a micro moment. How can you create a celebration when someone comes up with a great idea? Recognizing people for coming up with a great idea and being flexible enough to know that you don't have all the answers. Perhaps there is another answer that can be told by an 8-year-old child, but be flexible enough to listen. So you got to divine systems that support. What are some of the other things that are takeaways, actionable steps that the entrepreneur can do to build joy into their business venture?
Well, one of the things that I could say is understanding the power of joy in your actions. Because remember, joy is the modality, and there's a difference between, just say for an example, you at a restaurant and a waitress come and put a cup on your table and she just throw it and keep walking. That is her conscious modality, is a negative. But then you may have another waitress that come, set your napkins on your lap, just carefully put the cup on the table, and it makes you feel good because she's there to serve you. In your actions as an entrepreneur, but you always have to be aware. You always got to be conscious. That's what that meditation is. It's all about, being aware of the story that you're telling yourself, because you take a lot of your problems at home, you bring them to work and create madness too. But in your actions, in every action that you do, when you're dealing with customers, a customer can feel your energy as you serve that particular customer. That is a very, very, very powerful practice, because we have many employees and we go from state to state and we visit the employees. And I'm always careful and I'm always aware of my state of consciousness, how I'm feeling, as I interact and engage with our employees, because you never know the effect that you have on people, because you never know what a person is going through.
So in that way,
You let joy inform your experience with not only your clients, but also the employees, because you make them feel happy. But you got to block out time to be creative. We call it deep work. And that's when we sit down in an hour or 2 hours, we're able to figure out complex tasks. And yes, this is masterminding here. We're able to do that in such a way where it would have taken months and months and months to figure out otherwise. But because we have that dedicated effort, focus on a definitive goal, and therefore we can come out with very creative and meaningful things to get done to achieve the goal. But you also have to figure out what not to do. What is the stuff that kills your vibe? What is that stuff that kills your joy? Remember those joy thieves? We have to figure out those two and make sure we don't let those get in the way. So if we have to look at it, here are 6 things to make it easy. You got to build joy within the culture. So that's your team, relationships with your clients, etc. You got to design systems that support what you love and what brings joy to your business and organization. You got to let joy inform the way you handle and deal with employees and clients. Happy employees create happy clients. You got to block out time for that creativity, and then you got to learn to say no to stuff that's killing your vibe. Those are practical steps, because running a business isn't just about financial statements, profits, and productivity. It's about passion and purpose and finding moments of joy in your everyday hustle. Because being in business, you hustle. But being in business, you can find joy as well.
Well, joy is also, as we talk about joy, it's like we're talking about joy, but where is joy? How do you get it? How do you find it? Joy is non-conceptual and intangible. Understand that. But you are joy. Once you become present in those thoughts that you trapped in, and when you step outside of time, that's where joy is. When you trapped in psychological time, you're not going to find joy. You can find some pleasure. You can find things to think about. You can find things to make you happy. But true joy is a modality that is connected to the whole, because we are a part of the whole. These physical forms are just an instrument. True joy is the gaps in between our thoughts. True joy is the present moment. True joy is when you go into a zone. True joy, that's where the modality of joy comes from. So you have to be responsible for being able to find that sweet spot and find something that you really enjoy and love doing and be of service. And you will start to see how joy just start emanating from you and into the world, and people feel it and it's infested, and people want to be around it, and people trying to figure out, what is it about you that makes me want to be around you? And it's because the modality of joy, because you are in alignment with something that is bigger than yourself, but you are part of it, and you're doing something to serve other people.
Time definitely flies when you're having fun. The exciting part about it is, if you want to hear more about this topic or others, leave us a review, drop us a note. You can definitely subscribe, follow us today. Thank you so much for joining this episode, because time definitely flies when you're having fun. Bring joy into everything you do. Even though it's not a one size fit all, it is personal. So just go with the flow and have fun in what you do. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to More Details, Please, presented by Emmanuel and Angela Williams from DetailXPerts, the mobile steam cleaning company dedicated to protecting the planet. Be sure to subscribe to More Details, Please on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow us on Facebook at DetailXperts and visit DetailXperts.net. That's DetailXperts.net. We hope you've gained some valuable insights from our conversations today. Stay driven by curiosity, and we'll bring you more details next time.